For decades, people thought addiction was simple. A drug enters the body, the brain gets hooked, and after that, the person is basically trapped. This idea was so powerful that scientists tested it in the most direct way possible. They put rats alone in small metal cages. Then they gave them access to drugs, and many of the rats kept taking the drugs again and again. The lesson seemed obvious. Drugs are so addictive that, once exposed, the brain chooses them over normal life. But there was one problem. That normal life was not normal at all. The rats were alone, in tiny cages, with almost nothing to do. No friends, no space, no play, no meaningful environment. Just a metal box, food, water, and a drug. So in the late 1970s, Canadian psychologist Bruce Alexander asked a strange question. What if the rats weren't only choosing drugs because the drugs were powerful? What if they were choosing drugs because their lives were empty? To test this, Alexander and his colleagues built something that became famous as RatPark. It was basically a rat paradise, a large open enclosure. Food, balls, wheels, places to hide, other rats to socialize with, space to play, space to mate, a world where a rat could actually live like a rat. Then the researchers gave the rats a choice. One bottle had plain water, the other had water mixed with morphine, a powerful opioid. And this is where the story became famous. The isolated rats drank much more morphine solution, but the rats in RatPark mostly preferred plain water. They would taste the morphine sometimes, but they did not consume it the same way the isolated rats did. The drug was still there, the chemical hook was still there, but the environment had changed, and the behavior changed with it. This was the disturbing idea behind RatPark. Maybe addiction is not only about the substance, maybe it is also about the cage. Because if your world is empty enough, the drug is not competing with life, it is replacing it. Think about that. If a rat has friends, space, play, movement, and stimulation, morphine has competition. But if a rat has nothing except a metal cage, morphine becomes the most interesting thing in the universe. That does not mean the drug is harmless. That does not mean addiction is fake. That means the story is more complicated than bad chemical enters weak brain. RatPark suggested something deeper. The opposite of addiction might not simply be discipline. It might be connection. It might be environment. It might be having a life that gives the brain reasons to stay present. But here's where we have to be careful. The internet often tells the RatPark story like it solved addiction forever. It didn't. The original studies had limitations. The sample sizes were not huge. The setup was unusual. The morphine was given in drinking water, which is not exactly how humans usually take opioids. And later researchers had trouble directly replicating the exact findings. So RatPark is not proof that addiction is only caused by loneliness. That would be too simple. Addiction involves biology, trauma, genetics, stress, access, mental health, habit, withdrawal, and social environment. But RatPark did something important. It broke the old cage. It showed that when scientists study addiction in isolated animals, they may also be studying the effects of isolation. And later research has supported the broader idea. Animals in enriched environments often show less drug-seeking behavior, and in some studies, rats will choose social interaction over drugs when both options are available. That is a huge clue. The brain is not just looking for pleasure, it is looking for relief, reward, safety, contact, meaning, a way out of pain. And if real life does not provide those things, artificial rewards become much more powerful. Now look at modern humans. Most of us do not live in metal cages, but many people live in invisible ones. A small apartment, a repetitive job, no close friends nearby, no community, no nature, no silence, no purpose. A phone that gives tiny hits of stimulation all day, food engineered to be irresistible, porn, gambling apps, alcohol, scrolling, shopping, games, notifications. Modern life is full of little morphine bottles, not always drugs, but fast escapes, fast comfort, fast rewards. And the question becomes uncomfortable. Are we more addicted because the rewards are stronger, or because the rest of life has become weaker? Maybe both. Because when real life feels rich, artificial escape has competition. But when real life feels lonely, boring, stressful, or meaningless, escape starts to look like survival. That is why RatPark still matters. Not because humans are rats, we are not. And not because one experiment explains all addiction. It doesn't. RatPark matters because it changed the question. Instead of only asking, what is wrong with this person, it forces us to ask, What kind of cage are they living in? Because sometimes the problem is not just the bottle, it is the world around the bottle. And maybe the most frightening part is this. A cage does not have to look like a cage. It can have Wi-Fi, a comfortable bed, food delivery, endless entertainment, and still leave you isolated, bored, numb, and disconnected. The rats in the empty cages were not weak. They were trapped in a world with too little life in it. And when the only interesting thing in the cage was morphine, they chose morphine. So the lesson is not, drugs don't matter. They do. The lesson is, the cage matters too. And if we want to understand addiction, we can not only study the chemical, we have to study the life around it. Because sometimes, the way out is not just removing the drug. Sometimes the way out is building a world worth staying sober for.